One.
Coming to you live from 15 minutes late, radioactive wasteland. We're the survivors of the alt-right Keck apocalypse. The few, the brave, the bitchy, once the britchy. Actually, that's the big problem. Some of us weren't britchy today. Some of us were a wardrobe malfunction in the making.
Yes.
So this is number...
Rantzerker. I already told you.
Yeah, I know.
I told you it's an easy one.
In the sequence of things get forgotten. Rantzerker number 220.
222.
222. It's been a while.
222.
Jubilee does it again. I am Alison, and with me is Brian and Karen, and we are going to discuss whether or not Jubilee has improved since the last time they had a feminist versus people who are not MRAs conversation.
Well, except for Christoph Petkos. He was the only legit guy there. He was the guy that gave us this. Oh, I can't play it now.
The hair guy. Yeah,
the hair
guy.
The German,
he was the machine. He was the machine, the original
with
one.
the Eastern European accent. Yeah. He's actually legit men's rights. So yeah,
he was the only one. Though.
So they've basically gone backwards.
And his actual name is Kursat.
Okay, so they've gone backwards. Now they have even fewer actual men's rights activists.
Christoph is his middle name, so I think he just thinks it sounds more normal.
He changed it again, by the way. I'm friends with him on Facebook, so he goes by another name now.
Unbelievable.
Just to clarify, the 15 minutes was indeed in part because of a dire lack of pants. So
yes,
we needed to get pants on a person who might have gotten on the strain. So anyway, apologies for that, guys, but we are here now and we are going to go through this. And again, Jubilee sounds like they're not on the right foot because they're going backwards. Last time, was it last time they had an actual men's rights activist, and this time it appears that they have none at all.
I will have to push back because
all right.
If you look, I can't show you now, but one of the people on here is actually Thomas Carney, known as Blue Orange 22.
Oh yeah.
I've had him on my on here a couple of times, and he is on the panel, and he gets to say a few things. I'm actually going to have him on the show next week to talk about his experience on the Jubilee, because I want to know, remember when Christoph went on, now Jonathan Petkos, when he went on Jubilee, it was a couple of years ago, he recorded it. And the reason he recorded it was because he was certain they were going to edit, most of the conversation. And it was true. A lot of it was not, it was ended up on the cutting room floor. A lot of the good points that he brought up. So I want to talk to Thomas about this when he comes on, find out if he also had the same experience. So I will say that. And Pearl is on here as well. She's not really an MRA. I don't know what you would call her, but she is knowledgeable.
Man friendly.
Yeah.
Red pillar.
Yeah. Oh, someone is asking if you found JoJo.
I did.
I'll let you answer that.
No, I don't want to go into it too much, but we did get JoJo back early the next morning after we lost him, and he is here sleeping right now. So
that's good.
A little PTSD'd from the experience.
I actually got some more contextual information. If you're interested, just to give people a heads up, JoJo had a walkabout while he was in Calgary with the mule deer, and Baby had sort of a spiritual sojourn. But I found out from the person who we rented the place from, because it was her sister's neighbor who found JoJo. He was actually on a porch of a house overlooking the place we were staying. And apparently he was extremely frantic to try to get down, but he couldn't figure out how to descend the hill. So he was a little flummoxed.
Well, it was a pretty steep hill.
Yeah, it was a steep hill.
Lindsay climbed it to get to him, but she's still really mad about that because she's exhausted.
Oh yeah, no. I can
imagine.
Honestly, if I'd climbed that and then the dog ran away from me, I'd be like,
you'd get the
fuck
shotgun.
it, I'm going back to Virginia right now, and you can find your way home, Jojo.
Oh boy. And then we'd
Oh,
have
yeah.
like one of those long journeys, with the dog traversing North America and all of his
with another
all of
dog and
his
a cat.
his adventures helping people along the way.
Another dog and a sassy cat.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
It'd be perfect. It would be like a
I think that's
wholesome
what her
80s,
name
early
was
90s.
Sassy, the cat in that movie Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey. It was like Michael J. Fox voiced one of the dogs, and I forget who it was that voiced the cat. Was it Sally Field or something? But
that would
she was very sassy, or no, maybe her name was Prissy or something.
But sassy in a fun way rather than like a bitchy way.
No, she was a bitchy cat. She was
well, cats tend to be a
total bitch. But she came around, over the course of the journey. There was like a bond created between the three dogs, and particularly after the adventure with the porcupine. So,
oof! Oh, there's Jojo.
That's just for a second. There. That's what just for a second.
Okay. He looks like he's definitely having some thoughts, like a little bit of 1,000 yards there, or 1,000-foot elevations there. How do I get down this hill to get to my people? But okay, so that's what happened to Jojo. Jojo's fine. He is secured. He is back home. He's recovering. Brian is also recovering. Lindsay is recovering. Everybody's recovering. Karen's recovering.
I had to pee outside at 3 a.m. Do you know how fucking cold it is?
Yeah, it was pretty cold. And I didn't get the before I rented the place. I didn't figure out the bedroom to bathroom ratio situation, because they don't often make that very clear. I mean, it was a lovely place, but it's definitely more backwoods camping than anything. All right.
So even my husband said, this would have been great, to stay for a week in summer or something.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it was completely locked up, as was most of Calgary at that point. So we were sort of picking through the final event, the dregs of what was available, and could also have dogs. But it was a great meetup, I thought. Like we should
have just like surprised your dad with 3 dogs, none of whom get along with each other.
I think he would probably have disowned us. And what was that? Like none of the dogs liked each other.
No, I don't agree. I think Jojo was fine with whoever. He just was in a mood after he was lost, but he was pretty if the dogs are ambivalent, then that is like the best you could hope for in most cases.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Borat's not ambivalent.
Borat was just throwing his weight around like he always do.
Missile. He's like I'm going. Can I sniff?
Going for the testes.
I'm going for the testes. And both the other dogs are like, please don't. This is gay. And Borat's like, it's no homo. It's just bro. We're just It's bromo. Or just dogs chilling. Okay.
Yeah, no, and both of these other dogs are big enough to have eaten Borat, so that was super
But
fun.
they didn't.
Only because I kept Borat on like a 2-foot leash.
No, I don't think Scipio would have eaten Borat. No. I don't even think, like, okay, anyway. Yeah. All right, so
I only have so much time. I'm sorry.
So all right,
let's get into the video. Okay, so we're gonna be looking at this video from Jubilee. I downloaded it, so I'm not actually playing it from YouTube, because YouTube, I don't know if you guys have noticed, they have added a lot more ads to their videos, and they're longer and it's more painful. And yes, I know I could just use an ad blocker, but no, I just downloaded the video. Let's make this easy. So first we need to set up the scenario. So this is middle ground, where you bring a number of people from 2 sides of a given issue. It's usually 3 or 4 per side, and then they talk about this thing, and the host will ask a question, those who agree with this, or it's more like a statement. Those who agree with the statement, they will step forward, take a seat, and discuss why they agree with this thing, and then they'll bring on the disagreeers to like give their 2 cents, and then they have a conversation. So this is middle ground. I'm going to go ahead and play the first clip. If you're watching on your cellular device or your mobile device, you're not going to be able to see the video. You're just going to see our reaction, but it's okay. It's not like you're missing a lot. Plus the format doesn't really complement this kind of video. So, all right, here we go. Can you guys hear this?
My name's John. It's been 5 years since I directed an episode on this exact same topic, and it has only grown more relevant. So let's jump into our discussion between feminists and men's rights activists. Men
it's only
already
grown
have
more relevant
all
because
their
you
rights.
keep ignoring men's issues.
Yeah, that's true.
And men, as a response, are checking out in most cases, killing themselves, unaliving themselves. Dude, does it even matter if we say that? I mean, on this channel, like we're demonetized.
We talk about
forever.
we talk about suicide a lot. I don't know that I think that's more like the unaliving and the Minecrafting and the suicide and that I think that's more of a thing on TikTok. That's what I heard anyway. So
okay, so anyway,
Kevin, don't
men
make
are
me
checking
unalive
out.
you. Sorry.
Men are checking out. They're checking out permanently, and they're also, some are actually getting more vocal about the problem. It's just getting worse because they keep ignoring men's issues. And of course they say it's more relevant now. Why? Because they see men as being more of a problem, because men are failing to step up to doing the work to run society, and they've noticed that the birth rates are plummeting.
I wonder why.
Yeah, exactly. And so everything is getting worse because they keep ignoring the problem. And then they keep bringing these people on. One group is like, yeah, we don't have to pay attention. No, it's never sunk in the history of the regime. Tom. And then the other people are like, we got to attend to this problem. These are symptoms of the problem. Maybe, I don't know if they're that clued in. And then they continue to listen to the people who are like, no, High Brazil isn't sinking. It's never sunk. The committee met and they said, well, there's no possibility of High Brazil sinking, so how could it be sinking? Anybody who says it's sinking is a heretic, should be thrown out. Meanwhile, the water is up to your chin.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And everybody's singing tum tum ti tum tum.
And we're still having this discussion. Is this a problem? Should we continue to socially ostracize the people who point it out? That seems to be the easier route. Okay.
So the first statement that the people have to decide whether they believe or not is men already have all of their rights. I think this is already loaded. Personally, I don't want to get in. We don't have to get into it, but this is whenever you start saying men have all the rights, or so X has all the rights, or none of the rights, or needs these rights, I'm immediately like triggered by that a little bit, because this is totally like, what do you mean? What does rights mean? So, but let's see
context,
in this. Well, in general, like rights, what does that mean? Like no one defines it. No one defines what a right is. They're just like, I don't have enough Gibbs, and that's a right now, because it is. Well, anyway, let's see who thinks men already have all their rights.
If you agree, step forward. Let's start with you.
I hate the name men's rights activists because it does imply that as if our rights are being taken away. The problem that men face is more existential. The patriarchy conditions men, or assigned male at birth people, to pretty much just keep your feelings shut down. By age 10, your feelings don't matter. And then 12 through 13 and onwards, you just don't really feel like you matter much as a person. And I don't think
I think it's actually the opposite. And where's Alison?
Oh, did she leave? God damn it.
But
yeah,
I think it's the opposite, right? Like this is not the toughen up generation, right? Zoomers and even millennials are not from the toughen up generation of people. They were like, boys were certainly, their feelings were less catered to than girls, but it was never like pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get on with it, young man kind of thing. And I think young men actually quite understand that. And that's why I think that a lot of, when parents are having trouble with their boys, sometimes sending them to a boot camp style facility can really help straighten them out, right? Because it's not about not being able to have your feelings, because men do have their feelings. It's about, and it's not even about, I don't think, about being discouraged or forbidden from expressing your feelings. It's about, you haven't been given the tools to feel useful and in any kind of meaningful way. You've basically been given a set of tools that make you feel guilty for whenever you use them, right? And I think that that's kind of what it is. So if it's going to make you feel guilty every time you go earn a paycheck, right, and get ahead in life, if it's going to make you feel guilty, or if you're not going to get any kind of appreciation or kudos for that, then why would you bother doing it, right? And I think it's a crisis of motivation, and it's a crisis of respect and reward, right, for accomplishment. And I don't think it's like the whole idea of, suck it up, buttercup, that went out the window with Dr. Spock in the fucking 1970s, right?
Mr. Spock.
So
Dr.
Alison, Spock.
Did you catch that? This clip I just played, because you dropped out. I don't know if you.
No,
okay.
I caught the clip. The clip. I just dropped out before I could respond.
Oh, did you? Did you? There's more to this.
I have a few things to say. Okay. Oh, do you want to continue, or?
Well, let me play the rest of this time code, because
then I will type furiously.
This by the way, guys, this guy is legitimately a men's rights activist. He's on the men's rights side, even though he opened up with assigned male at birth as part of the description of a man. So let's just
under the patriarchy,
categorize it. Yeah, and then also dropping the P bomb. So let's just categorize that, and then let's pretend like this guy isn't a total mole. Okay, let's play the rest of this.
I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that. Our rights aren't really under attack. Meanwhile, half of Congress hasn't codified Roe v. Wade. They're trying to control women's bodies, and it's just ridiculous. Like, our rights aren't under attack, but a lot of women's rights are, and I think it's important that we fight for that.
Right. You mean assigned female
at birth? Do you have a right
to
abort? Do you?
Okay, is he concluded?
That's concluded.
All right.
But this young man, he doesn't have a right to abortion.
No, let me.
Are you assuming his gender?
Let me just. Okay. Let's just take this away from the issue of men aren't allowed to have feelings, which really invites the question: why would a society train men not to have feelings unless it intended them to endure pain and sacrifice?
Use them as appliances.
Use them as appliances. So right there's a huge contradiction in his thinking. There's no reason to train men not to have feelings unless you want to disregard those feelings in sacrificing men to some end. Now, moving on just down to brass tacks of actual rights. Let's look at abortion. Men don't have the right to separate ejaculation from parenthood, the responsibilities of parenthood. That means that if a man is raped, he is still considered legally responsible for any child who is conceived through the process of having been raped. And this is legal precedent in law in the US. So the equivalent for women would be, even if she was raped, she had no point can she escape her parental or be relieved
her parental responsibility. Even even
in incest, even in rape, there would be no. So it's
not just no abortion, right? No safe haven abandonment, and no adoption.
So literally, if a woman is raped, the state would say, you have to take responsibility for that child. You either have to raise it or you have to pay for it. No exceptions. No safe haven abandonment, no adoption, none whatsoever. If that rapist wants the child, no adoption, no safe haven abandonment. That's the situation for men. So when he starts right off the bat, he starts with complete ignorance. He doesn't even know the legal situation for men. The legal situation for men when it comes to sex is ejaculation. If your DNA gets conceives a child, you are responsible for that child, regardless if it is through fraud, through rape, through any other form of crime. So that's the situation. That's the actual legal precedent for men. So right off the bat, he is full of shit. What is he doing there? What is he doing there? Lying about the situation again. It's a Tetums festival. Oh, hi, Brazil isn't sinking. We don't need to. He's just there to lie about the problem. And that's just one. Just let me finish. That's just one right. Then you have men's right to genital integrity. Women are protected under law in the US and Canada. Nobody can even so much as pinprick their vagina. In fact, nobody can even so much as tear off a toenail as some kind of weird ritual of initiation for their daughters. But we can do that for our sons. And there is no way to say that a pinpricking the clitoris is equivalent to taking off a couple square inches of skin from the penis via a method that's akin to just taking a knife, putting it under your nail and scraping it back and forth till the nail pops off, right? So men are not legally protected. Their genitals, their physical, their bodily autonomy is not legally protected. Then you have the whole suite of laws that only pertain to protecting men or women when it comes to domestic violence and sexual assault, right? So right here, there is glaring inequalities in law that favor women. And then we're not even at the draft, for God's sake.
And we're also not even at affirmative action for women and, diversity quotas and things like that.
So this man is pig ignorant. What is he doing there? Right there. What is he doing there?
Well, you knew he didn't belong on that side of the freaking thing when he stepped up at the question, do men have all their rights? And he stepped up and said he agreed.
Yeah, he started off by saying, I hate the name men's rights activist. So there's that. That was literally the first words out of his mouth. So
yeah, because
I would say
have all the rights.
This guy's super sus. Yeah, but like these people don't know what the word rights even means. And on top of that, this is already sort of uncharitable. Although I think it's better than the last one, than the last time Jubilee did this. And I think this was the thing, Alison, that you were invited to, isn't it? That you couldn't make?
No, it was something else by some other. No, it wasn't this. It wasn't. I don't believe it was Jubilee. Maybe it was. Let me look. And I couldn't do it because I've been kicked out of the U.S. and I don't want to push it. Although I did talk to an immigration lawyer and they said, "Oh, well, you could call this a convention." I'm like, I don't want to be kicked out forever. I'm not going to do this shit. And so it's unfortunate, guys.
You called it a convention last time, and you got banned for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's
just insane. But yeah, I think it might have been this. Let me just check. Let me find.
Well, I got a super chat in the meantime. I'm gonna read it really quick. So,
sure.
Miles Kinslow gives us $10. Thank you, Miles, and says, "Hey guys, just want to wish you all well. Also, thank you, Brian, for introducing me to Jay Longbone. Never laughed so hard. The video of her reviewing the L word Q generation was hilarious. L word Q generation. Thank you, Miles. Yes, Jay Longbone's great. You know what? I think she's from Chicago too. I get the sense that we're more kindred than previously thought I know that she's from Chicagoland, at least because I watched some of her videos and she makes references that I think only somebody who lives in the city would get. So anyway.
You're right, Brian. This is the one I was invited to.
Yeah, this is the one you could have been on. Yeah,
and I would have nailed that guy.
Yeah, totally.
Right off the bat.
I think most of what you had to say would have ended up on the cutting room floor, but we'll find out.
This is a Tetums festival to assure everyone that the glaring problem that we have isn't happening.
Yeah.
Like, this is the thing.
It's becoming more and more relevant, yet less and less addressed. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. Like, the problem doesn't go away just because you ignore it, like this guy who is on the men's rights. Okay. Anyway. And the other thing is that I'm going to call myself a men's rights activist as long as men are expected to sacrifice their lives in the protection of society. Look at the Ukraine. Men have to stay and they have to fight legally. They're killed.
We'll get to the draft.
They're like,
okay, and everybody in the West was all up in arms, okay, because certain people weren't allowed to leave. Ooh, trans women were required to stay and fight because they had penises, and that was unjust. And I'm like,
as long as men are not protected from conscription, as long as men are not protected from having their genitals cut into, regardless of what you think they remove, the idea of cutting into your daughter's genitals is completely beyond the pale, but it's fine for our sons. As long as men are not protected from sexual violence, as long as men can't separate ejaculation from consent to parenthood, as long as men aren't protected from domestic violence, I will call myself a men's rights activist. You solve those problems and I will go away. Maybe I'll call myself an advocate for, sane dating. Or maybe I'll just go write. Just do my art and writing. Oh, good Lord, what a thought. But rectify these things, because these are the things. And the other thing is that I said to people on this channel that we are the ones who are going to save them, because we can actually identify the problem. Like we know that High Brazil is sinking. We are building a freaking boat. If anybody's going to be saved, it's going to be because of us. Not just Honey Badger Radio, but everybody who can manage to understand and conceptualize and not immediately push away the idea that men have issues, that men are people and not things to be sacrificed for the benefit of others. Right? And the rest of the world can't do that. Therefore, they can't even conceive of the fact that High Brazil is sinking, much less start building a freaking boat. But anyway, I'll get off the podium and we'll listen to.
All right. So he comes out, says that men need to talk about their feelings more, but also men aren't really under attack because Roe v. Wade and women. So we're back at women. We're back at it's like
women are going to have the same situation men are in.
Yeah. Skip your turn. We're talking about women right now. It's like a board game where you keep picking up the card that penalizes you. All right. So let's keep going.
I also think that there's a difference between rights and inequalities.
Yeah, of course.
So I don't think that my rights being taken away. I think that's just an effect of patriarchy.
I agree.
We're not losing our bodily autonomy. We're not, fearing for our lives walking down a dark hallway.
High Brazil isn't
so I don't think they're comparable.
God.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
You cannot
when men suffer, it's because of patriarchy. Yes.
You can't address men's issues in the context of this patriarchy bullshit. You just can't.
Okay.
It's one or the other.
Okay. No, just the one thing, the one absolutely fucking retarded thing that came out of his mouth just now was, we're not the ones fearing for our lives walking down a dark alley or whatever at night, right? Objectively, you should be the ones who fear that, because you're more likely to be assaulted in that situation by a stranger than any woman is. Okay. So, but the reason that you don't has nothing to do with patriarchy. It has nothing to do with society. It has to do with testosterone. You are complaining. Okay, you are saying that because women are unjustifiably more afraid than men of certain things, right? Because of their biology, right? That means society is unjust towards women, right? Women shouldn't have to feel afraid. Well, I got news for you. They don't. They don't have to feel anything, okay? They don't, right? Their estrogen makes them feel certain things that you don't feel because you don't have as much, right? Okay, that's why they're having those feelings. It's not because society isn't fair to them. It's not because they're more at risk. It's not because of any of those things. It's not because of anything external to them, right? It's because of their hormones, right? That's what makes them have a higher level of apprehension in situations that are a little sketchy. That's all it is, right? This is why I don't see men having to pre-game, okay, just to have sex, right? But something like 60% of young women drink right? They ply themselves with alcohol when they want to have sex that night, right? I'm going to a frat party or a dorm party and I want to have sex, so I'm going to pre-game myself to remove my apprehensions and inhibitions so that I'll be able to, make it over the inhibition hump and actually start humping, right? And that's what they have to do. Men don't have to do that, right?
Well, they don't. Their risk assessment is significantly lower, which, I mean, it does itself have an issue.
Their level of perceived risk is lower, and I agree. But that the level of objective risk is at least as high, if not higher. But you can have a talk with your young man, right? With your teenage son, you can have a talk with him about that, right? And basically show him the ropes. And, like I gave this talk to both my boys. I'm like, okay, always condom, always your condom, not hers, right? Okay. And don't flush that shit because somebody has to scrape it off a sewer grate somewhere. And that's disgusting. And don't put them through that. But don't just throw it in the garbage can in the bathroom, right? Take it into the bathroom with you, rinse it out with the hottest water that'll come out of the tap, right? And then throw it away. Leave absolutely no living DNA in that condom, right? And you might think that that's paranoid, right? But there are women who have done it. There are women who have admitted to having done it, right? And if it happens to you, as rare as it is, there's no way of getting out of it.
All right. Let's, I guess, play some more. But yeah, I mean, I think the idea of somebody feeling unsafe is a moot point. We can't even discuss anything related to reality based on how people feel. I'm sorry. It's just not a thing. You guys need to stop. Like, women could be afraid. That doesn't justify any of it. Just feeling afraid doesn't mean that you're actually threatened. Okay, it just means you feel afraid. So I can't deal with that. It's like you're like emotionally incontinent.
Maybe you need a little bit of that stoicism, and that's the funny thing. Like the first guy says, society teaches men to be stoic. Teaches men to disregard their feelings, but women feel afraid. Well,
I think that it's almost like they want. It's almost like they want men and women to both feel equally afraid, but they would still say that men are in less danger, and never consider, like, maybe women should toughen up. Maybe that would be the correct route. Maybe we should
They're basing everything on women feel afraid while admitting that we live in a society that presumably shames men for being afraid, among other emotions. So,
well, no, for not being afraid, because they'll say women are in more because it's impossible to solve. Like you're essentially asking women to not be what they are and asking men to not be what they are. Like, if women are more risk averse and they're generally more paranoid and they're generally more afraid, and there is some reason for it, not that they're actually in danger, but because they are a limiting factor in our species, then we have to say, yeah, okay, women do feel that way. So look, why don't we come up with stuff to make them feel less like that? Oh, I know, police and firemen and rangers and military and Coast Guard and lifeguards and bodyguards and just like men
and self-defense classes and
and guns
and confidence training.
Right.
Yeah. But instead we feed them a narrative that all their fears are justified and they should actually feel even more afraid.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is, and like I said, this is never going to be solved. This problem is not going to be solved by people who fetishize women's fear. That's what these people are. That's what I see. People who fetishize women's fear. Is that too out there, too bizarre a thing to say?
No, they're victim farmers.
Victim farmers and victim fetishists.
Yeah. All right. Nova Fan gave us $1 in the Rumble rant. Thank you. Right now, and says, anyone gonna tell the feminists that it's women who tell men to not talk about their feelings? Yeah. So anyway, let's play the rest.
You
want to hear
even if women don't tell men up front, don't talk about your feelings, men figure it out after her pussy dries up the moment he starts talking about his feelings.
Yeah.
Can I just let me do the things, because I see that we haven't got many super chows, or we haven't even got one super chow, guys. Send in those super chows. It's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very best way to send us whatever funds you want to send. Very best way for you to send that comment, not through YouTube's comment labyrinthine comment enhancement system. So once again, that's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Please send them, because we like to see them.
Let's play some more of the video. So you got to hear from this woman real quick.
Do we have time codes, or just doing
I
this
do.
raw?
No, I have time codes, but it's a little bit front loaded. So.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think when you look at most of the world's leaders are men, most judges are men. Look at even our Supreme Court, there's 9 judges and how many are women? You know, it's the fact that women had to fight and ask to, in 1974, get access to have their own bank account. Like,
oh
that's
God,
absurd. That's
this
absurd.
bullshit.
Wait, no, what are you talking about, Alison? I've never heard these arguments before. This is completely new and unique.
You know, I noticed they've shifted from 1918 to 19. Have you noticed that's 2 generations for? Because it's always the last generation that's the great horrible oppression of women.
Yeah.
Women could have bank accounts. Pretty sure what it was that it wasn't illegal for banks not to give bank accounts to women because they were women. So that what happened is
I think banks are bane of my existence.
But Karen knows more, so I shall see.
I highly doubt that any banks were denying women bank accounts. What they denied women was credit. And the reason they denied women credit was because even in the 1970s, a married woman's debts were her husband's responsibility. So when a single woman went to the bank and applied for credit, she had a big hurdle to overcome because, you know, there was no man co-signing on that loan, right? Unless she had her father or a husband or whatever to co-sign with her and ultimately be responsible to repay the loan, right? There was no one undersigning or underwriting the loan because they couldn't get the money back from her if she defaulted. There was just no legal way to do that, right? So, but women were getting loans. Women were getting loans all the way back into like the mid 1800s and even further back. Certain women, usually widows with master tradesman status that they inherited from their husbands, and then they continued running his business, right? And all of those things, right? Those women were able to obtain loans. Women who were widows who owned ranches or farms and continued to operate them, right? They were able to obtain loans, right? That is just the freaking way things worked, because it wasn't expected that she was going to, she was necessarily going to marry again, and she'd marry some wastrel who wouldn't be able to, and pass off the debt to him, and then he wouldn't be able to pay it back. But also she had a track record behind her of protecting her husband's credit, right? Because she had the law of agency on her side, where she could just walk into any store and purchase a whole bunch of shit and say, put it on my husband's bill, right? And so by doing that and never overspending, right, never getting her husband into financial trouble by doing that, right, she developed a reputation in the community among financial and mercantile providers that she made good on her debts, right? That she could be relied on to be responsible and pay shit back, right? So those were generally the women who got loans. Also extremely talented younger women who had, who, you know, they were maybe, they had high earning potential, right? And the banks would be willing to take a chance on them, but they could say no to your average everyday woman who just wanted a credit card. And when I look at women's credit card debt and stuff like that, and the things that they spend money on, even when they don't have money, right? Like you're looking at, women complaining about inflation and complaining about putting groceries on the table, and they got those 3-inch freaking $100 swords growing out of their fingernails or their fingertips, and they got the false eyelashes on, and I'm like, maybe don't spend money on that. Like, you're not very financially responsible if you're complaining about inflation while owning 100 pairs of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So yeah, it's a lot more complicated than what this woman is just spitting out. And if they weren't female victim fetishists, they would probably go, well, is there a context to that? And go and look into history and find that there's a context, just like there's a context to every claim of female victimhood throughout history. There is a context. There is an expectation placed on men for sacrifice, an obligation for them to accommodate women based on their limitations, which incidentally, they may have been in law, but as I pointed out, a lot of these limitations were due to biology, not law. They may have been put in law because the law then made the men obligated to accommodate those limitations. But those limitations came from biology. If you got rid of all of the laws restricting women, throughout history, there would be no change in their situation, because their situation was the result of biology. What would change would be the legal expectations placed on men to accommodate the limitations of women's biology. All right? And they don't look at that stuff. They never look at that stuff. So they're still in.
You're muted, Alison.
Alison, you muted.
They're still in the position of believing that high Brazil can't possibly sink. They cannot see the world outside of female victim fetish.
Yeah.
We call it FVF.
The other thing is that she's talking about all of these positions or institutions that are primarily occupied by men, as though it means that they will use those positions to harm women or benefit men. And that is them giving away what they would do if they had power. Whenever somebody says, oh, like they're all of the Supreme Court justices or all of the senators or all of the Congress or the president or this or the generals or whatever, they're all XYZ. What they're telling you is that if I had that position, I would use it against you. Because what is the purpose of a judge? What is the function of Congress or the Senate or the presidency? What is the function? Is it to serve themselves? No, at least it shouldn't be. But these people enable
only these people and not those people.
These people are telling you what they would do if they had power. Because they always give it away when they say, well, these people are using power against me and there should be more of me in power because then I would use it against them. And it's like you don't even realize that the purpose of the reason why men are in these positions is when it's not about corruption, which I don't want to get into, but in theory, the idea is to serve people with that. And this is something that these people cannot see. Fortunately, though, Blue Orange does bring that up later. He says that, people go into government because they're serving, they're like this politicians act in the interests of women, even if they're men. Right. Yeah. So the fact that they're men is meaningless. But anyway, I want to
just before you get into it, I want to address this idea that men in power privilege other men. And I bring this up constantly. I say, well, a woman or a feminist will assert men in power privilege other men. And I'll bring up something like the draft and the wholesale sacrifice. If we look at it in historical terms, men in power were also sacrificing themselves. It wasn't until you got like 2-star general that the rate of casualty in World War II of officers equaled the rate So what happened is when you got like captains, lieutenants, their casualty rate, and despite coming from the upper classes, was greater than sergeants, privates, and corporals, enlisted men. So that didn't even out until you got to the rank of general. So men in positions of power also sacrifice themselves in war. But set that aside. when you look throughout history and you say, well, men sacrifice other men, and they don't just sacrifice other men in war, they sacrifice other men for infrastructure projects, Hoover Dam, the tunnel under the Thames. There was like 18 men for every foot under the Thames, I think, that died. So men sacrifice other men to build stuff, not just kill and in war. And when you point that out, well, they say, well, who's doing the sacrificing? Okay. So you're saying that we exist in a society that has constructed for men's benefit, and yet men are sacrificing other men to construct that society.
Yeah.
Which is it?
Well,
Yeah.
also, like, you can't live in a world where people don't ever make any sacrifices. Like, that's just
Yeah.
No, it's not
that's just not
possible.
reality. I'm sorry, but we don't live in utopia. Like, people have to do shit, and sometimes it puts them at risk. And so that you can get your fucking, your diamond necklace or your new telephone or whatever, or your Alaskan sea crab, so maybe instead of complaining that men are doing this to other men, you just be fucking grateful for what you have. All right.
Yeah, but men are like enforcing the sacrifices necessary to run society on other
Yeah.
men. And yet society is also constructed for the benefit of men. No.
There is no such
this is a
civilization that does
circular
not have
frickin'
sacrifice.
argument. Yeah.
Sorry,
But
you
yes,
just got to
that's
live
true.
with that.
I mean, yes, that's true,
Yeah.
Brian, but my point is that the logic is incompatible.
Mhm.
Like,
No, I get
Yeah,
that.
no,
It's always incompatible.
It's like that Mike Buchanan panel discussion, when the and he was like, yeah, well, if the justice system, if the criminal justice system treated men as leniently as it does women, then 5 out of 6 men in the UK who are currently in prison would not be in prison. And she says, well, but the majority of judges aren't women. And he's like, yeah, that's the whole point. And she completely missed the point, because, the point was that men in power privilege other men. Well, obviously they don't.
Yeah, obviously.
Right? And she did not understand that point. It just went way over her head. And I was just like, I was sitting there going like, how can you be this retarded and be invited to speak at an event? That you could miss that point, right? That you could go to number one, that you couldn't see it coming, right? Because I would have seen that point coming like a mile away, right? When he's saying, well, here's how the justice system treats men compared to women. And then her saying, well, most of the judges are men. Exactly.
All right,
Right?
I got a couple of super chats we should read out. So first of all, this video is a request by Pepito so he sent a super chat with the link, and I want to read it out because he was first of all, it was a good get, because I haven't checked out Jubilee in a while. So thank you, Pepito. He says, for $100, it was great to meet Alison and Brian. No, I'm sorry. Let me read that over because my name came first. It was great to meet Alison, Brian, Alison, Jonathan, Karen, Aaron. Thanks for organizing it. Did you guys want to do a response video series on the latest Jubilee about feminists versus MRAs? A word of notice and sorry in advance for the pain you will feel watching the video. Well, it is only the 3rd time I had to watch it, so.
Yeah, well, also thank you for the $100.
Thank you for
Pepito.
really appreciate the donation, Pepito. Okay. And then he gave us another $10 today, and I have that one on the screen here. And he says, yes, Karen, this narrative that men have issues because they are not communicating their feelings is so wrong. We don't work like women. You can't apply a woman's solution to a men's issue. Men have issues because society uses them as tools and they know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard to not be cynical about that. And then Great Indoors gave us $5 and says, repeal the 19th credit card. Thank you for that. And then I got Zeranx with a super chat. I hope I didn't miss anything. And Zeranx says, for $5 super chat, it's annoying that few, if any, people talking about women's ability to get a credit card, get a credit, never look at the student loan crisis, which is 2/3 women owned.
Yep.
Yes, women
Yep.
are most of the debt, because fuck it, I'll just marry a dude that'll pay it off for me. That's
Well, it
really
doesn't work
the
anymore.
attitude.
That doesn't
Well, it
work
may
anymore.
not, because men aren't making enough money and women are just going further
And
into
the men
debt.
who
So
are they're in their soft guy era.
yeah.
Grizzle.
All right. So I'm going to jump ahead to the next time code. So this woman basically goes into, well, they kind of like shit on MRAs for a few minutes. I don't think that that's worth looking at, unless you want me to play more of that and you want to hear it.
Sure. I'll try to keep my trap shut while we listen to it.
All right. Let's see if we can endure it.
You know, just because there's a little clause in the Constitution that says all men being equal, they're going to play dumb and act like that means just men. It doesn't mean human. And for women to have to fight for any...
Literally, no one is saying this except you. And this dude's nodding. Oh, my God. Guys, avoid plastics in your water and estrogenic products or you'll end up like this. No processed foods, no plastics. Okay.
Okay, can I just... This is so low energy.
Yeah, this is really like yeah, mid-wit.
They are bringing their best. Jubilee isn't bringing their best to this.
No,
panel.
they're not. They're not.
Jesus, so freaking stupid.
I think a lot of this too. This is another thing. I bet a lot of these people are like influencers, and so they're coming out here to like raise their platform and get people to like follow them on their socials. So this isn't really a serious conversation. You know what it's like? It's like when we were on Wick TV. Those are not serious people. Those are people trying to increase their clout. They're chasing clout, and one of the ways you do it is to pretend like you understand gender dynamics and men and women. You know, so
and it's just
it's ridiculous.
It proves that men have their right. They're the ones that set the rights. They're the ones that, if that's most of our Senate, our House, our Congress, everybody, they're the ones that vote over the laws and things that get passed. They have the rights, and they're the ones that dish them out to everybody else. And you're lucky if you can get them.
Amazing. This is how rights work. Crazy.
And yet,
crazy.
Men again enforce the role of sacrifice on who do you think voted to make it illegal for men to leave the Ukraine? Right? There's no greater expectation of sacrifice than to expect men to sacrifice their health, their well-being, their plans for their future, their lives to ensure your interests are protected in your country. Right? There's no greater. So men enforce the greatest sacrifice on other men. Yes. But that's not compatible with a society that puts men first, is it? It's more compatible. And in fact, if you think about it, men leading and men is actually a prerequisite of men being able to lead. In other words, being able to direct this sacrifice, either in war or infrastructure projects or in emergencies. That sacrifice is a prerequisite for there to be male leadership in the first place, if you think about it. Because what else would they be leading? What else would they be directing?
Yeah, there wouldn't be anything. We'd all be living in grass huts.
Yeah, there wouldn't be the men on the factory floor. There wouldn't be the men on the high-rise beam, you know, those scary photos. There wouldn't be the men up in the cell tower. There wouldn't be the men on the lobster. There wouldn't be the men on the ground in the war. There would be no sacrifice to direct. Therefore, there would be no need for leadership because there would be no sacrifice to direct. You get what I'm saying?
There'd be no society.
There would be no society, but let's not go that step further. Men's sacrifice is a necessary prerequisite to men's leadership, and this is completely ignored by the female victim fetishist crowd. Like there's not one without the other. Okay, let's
I'm gonna play the next bit. Okay, now we're gonna hear from the men's rights activist that's actually seated here.
I think it's been hijacked by a lot of bad faith actors who blame women for problems that you should blame the patriarchy.
Exactly.
No, and it's very frustrating because I'm on this side because I think that there is genuine problems that I think need to be addressed.
Exactly.
I'm sure we can all agree on that.
What are some of those problems?
I guess I'm a bad actor.
Yeah, we're all bad faith actors, for sure.
Because I can do that. I can blame women. And in fact, I would rather be blamed than exist in a nothing state in which none of my actions have any consequence on anything.
But
that is
obviously,
a nothing state.
Alison, you can't take responsibility. The patriarchy did this. The patriarchy.
There's no end to that. There's no point at which the people who believe this stop and say, hey, wait, let's fact check this. So ultimately, you're promoting a belief in which women have no existence. You are
Patriarchy,
victim. You are victim
patriarchy.
fetishizing women out of all existence. Because there's no point where you say, well, no, maybe actually women do have control over their own thoughts and choices. No, that's patriarchy. It is such a sick mentality. And like I said, I would rather take blame than exist as that.
Yep. All right, let me play some more of this.
Are 4 times as likely to, I don't know what the TikTok version of the phrase is, but 4 times more likely. I think that's something that should be talked about more. I think that there's also a lot of men are very hesitant to get rid of the notions of patriarchy, whereas I've noticed a lot of women or assigned female at birth people are very willing to just throw away any notions of femininity. I think a lot of men have a lot of emotional baggage from the patriarchy that they redirect at women, and it's not fair to them, and it's also hurting us.
Right.
Wow,
And the problem is
completely
for some
captured.
men, all they have is their notion of masculinity to the point that they cannot let it go, and they can't see anything else.
Let me
other than
ask you
that.
something. What if masculinity was seeing women as victims that you didn't have the power to save? What if that is what you're terming patriarchy? Are you not then doing patriarchy right now?
There's a little bit more to this I want
know.
you guys to hear, so let me just play
sure.
the rest of this, okay?
When the actuality
I'm
is,
sorry,
again,
Karen, there's nothing
gender
you can
isn't
do.
real. We're just plants with complicated emotions. When I look at people, I just see human-shaped flowers.
So we're not even people, guys. There's no such thing as gender or sex. It's all socialized.
But men
But I also care a lot about women, which isn't real, but it is real when I care about them. But when I don't care about them and I'm talking about men, they're not real. There's no such thing as a man, but there is such a thing as a woman. Otherwise, we're just plants with feelings.
Why do these?
This guy's on the men's rights side. You're like, you don't even exist in reality.
Why do these plants? Why did we start with the plants? Why didn't we start with the humans? I'm sorry, that was mean. There's a lot of face palming going on in our panel here.
Well, I mean, look, this is this conversation can't even take place. You're like, this is where we are now. We're discussing organic creatures that have consciousness and the ability to speak as though they don't possess any gender. Like this guy has said multiple times in his conversation that he's a gender abolitionist, but he's also a men's rights activist somehow.
But also believes that men oppress women in patriarchy. Gender abolitionists, except when it comes to signing ultimate blame. What a surprise. You would think, if you think about it, that is actually a gender dichotomy. Men are to blame, women are blameless. But apparently that can't be challenged, but we have to challenge everything. Well, I'm sorry. If your gender dichotomy
everything except patriarchy theory, Alison, challenge the notion of being a human male first before we even
a human being. No,
yeah,
but we still retain patriarchy theory.
Anything but face that. Yeah.
Naming everything bad after men. That's
that can't go.
That can't go. So,
that's the we can just basically say, well, human beings aren't actually human. We're not even animals. We're just plants with feelings, right? And but yeah, no, naming everything bad that's
I
ever
just see
happened
human-shaped
after
flowers.
Yeah,
what do you see?
Human-shaped flowers.
I see 2 Venus flytraps on the screen. That's what I see. But,
yeah, no. What I see is one of those giant stank flowers. From the Amazon rainforest, the ones that smell like rotten meat.
Yeah, but they're oh, okay, fair enough. They're very beautiful, but they smell like rotten meat.
Carnivorous flowers, right? Like they're like huge.
Yeah.
They're like 6 feet tall.
The pitcher plants? Oh, okay.
They're like 6 feet tall. They stink like rotten meat. They attract flies, and then they eat the flies.
That's a very
This guy is definitely a plant. You know what I mean?
He's definitely a giant stank flower with feelings.
He's definitely a plant.
Okay.
All right.
I just wanted.
Go ahead.
You guys.
Go ahead.
Oh,
No,
sorry. I know, Brian. It's a thing.
Okay.
Just let's keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
I don't feel like
okay.
I don't feel like belaboring it.
All right. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would say that a lot of these men's rights activists, they're struggling. Like you said, they have high suicide or high self-deletion, whatever.
Men's rights activists.
Men's rights activists don't have high suicide rates.
Suicide rates.
Men,
no.
Men do.
What we have is high rates of fatal cringe.
Yeah, but
I would consider that murder.
Yeah,
you female victim fetishists are cringe.
Yeah, no, but the like once you actually reach a man who's like in crisis, right? He's struggling, he's whatever, and you tell him you don't even have to tell him there's hope, right? You don't even have to tell him, right? Things will get better, right? You just have to tell him, I understand, okay, and why it's happening. I'm going to tell you why it's happening. Because you're not crazy. You're not actually crazy. Right? And then all of a sudden they feel better, right? It's like, you know, like it's like getting that horrible diagnosis, right? You know, and maybe it's a fatal diagnosis. Maybe it's like, you know, but it was a mystery illness for like 12 years of your life, made you sick for 12 years of your life, and no doctor could tell you what was wrong with you. And then finally, they put a name to it and explained why you're sick, right? And you're like, oh, like, and then he's like, yeah, you got like 2 years to live. And you're like, well, at least I know what's wrong with me, right? At least I know what's wrong. And so once you actually let these guys know, right? Here's what's wrong. Here's why, right? You're not crazy. Yeah, the suicide thing just kind of, it's no longer a thing, because the suicide thing is just like, it's not even about not having hope of improvement or whatever. It's more like, okay, I understand that I'm not crazy. I understand what's going on. I don't hate women anymore. They're just doing what they do, right? Enabled by a situation that does what it does for these reasons. And maybe I can find some loopholes somewhere. Right? And make a life for myself. And that's it. And it isn't going to be the life I always dreamed of. Right?
Yep.
But it'll be a life. And whenever I see someone behaving like a cunt towards me or whatever, right? Whenever the system comes down on me, I'll just put it in context. I'm not crazy, right? This is actually unjust. It's not me. It's not anything I did, right? It's not any mistake I made, right? And so let's just keep going on. And like the urge to suicide just tends to go away. And you know, so I think that like this whole idea, you know, like just, I don't know whether she just misspoke, right? But men's rights activists and high suicide rates, yeah, they don't have high suicide rates. They don't.
No.
You get the occasional one, like Earl Silverman. Right?
Well, they're the reason why I think I bring this up is because they are conflating men with men's rights activists now. So now they're just using the terms interchangeably, right? Because it's useful. It's useful. I can throw shade at an entire gender by saying I'm only throwing shade at this group of men, which is probably in the extreme minority. But anyway. All right, let's play a little bit more.
Rates.
I don't know what the word is, dude.
And the way they're coping with it.
Themselves.
Yeah, and the way that they're coping with it is by saying, okay, we're having this issue, so we need to put women back.
Exactly. It's not
And
fair.
be this, yeah, we need to take away their rights. We need this society to be.
She's talking now about men who are suicidal in this way? I can't, and they let her continue?
Yeah, they're just nodding along with it. Even the men's rights activists.
Unbelievable. You don't have the first clue. You've never talked to any man who's suicidal or getting there, lady. You have no clue what they're actually thinking. You are turning a mental illness into a talking point for your vapid ideology. No, I would probably have walked out at this point.
Yeah, well, and we're just going to push women back. No, that's what women did with feminism, push men back, right?
Well, they
So
also
it's
pushed
just
women
more
back.
projection.
Yeah.
Well, unless you were the proper kind of woman, but
Yeah.
then they blame the fruits of their feminism on patriarchy and then say women are more oppressed than ever. Like what's her name, Gloria Steinem. Oh, are women still oppressed? Oh, they're more oppressed than ever.
But can you
How
this is
so?
actually
Because they have to juggle career and family, right? And it's like, isn't that what you demanded?
Mm-hmm. But this is like I have to get this point out because it's this. She's now targeting men with mental health issues, with her bullshit.
Well, I don't think that all men who are suicidal have mental health issues.
Okay, fair enough. She's targeting men who are suicidal, wanting to unalive themselves with her ideological bullshit. Yep. And this is the problem. Like, if you take people to a hospital and the physician in charge constantly, diagnoses them with hypochondria. Like, well, I got a knife in my thigh. You're a hypochondriac. I've been vomiting for 30 hours straight. You're a hypochondriac. I have my throat slit. You're a hypochondriac. That's what she's doing. That's what all of these people are doing. You're a hypochondriac. Everything. Yeah. Everybody who comes through the emergency room door, gunshot, appendicitis, heart attack, stabbing, broken, like from a crash, like open wound in their head. Oh, you're all hypochondriacs. That's their solution to men's issues. You're hypochondriacs. Mm-hmm. And that's what she's essentially saying.
And also, you're really putting me out.
You're putting me out. And Dev, we talked about how you hate women. I know you're bleeding to death now. You're starting to lose sight in your eyes. But have we talked about not just you're a hypochondriac, but how
your abuse of the ER system to get me away from the TV because I was watching The View while eating some snacks.
Yeah, and how that means you hate women. How your stab wound means you hate women. Good Lord. I am willing to blame women. I'm willing to blame this woman. She's not making anything better. All right, let's keep going.
All right, let's hear from this guy with the gray shirt. I think he's going to talk.
No, that's the problem is that like I have this thing I say. I feel like saying that like men have feelings is kind of like saying all lives matter because men only ever bring up their problems directly after women bring up theirs. So it just sounds dismissive.
Okay, so
men's rights activists, guys. This is an MRA for real. For real though.
He's now performing patriarchy. Didn't he say that men are shamed for bringing up their feelings? What's he doing right now?
Shaming it's not patriarchy when he does it.
For bringing up their feelings.
Because men only do it when women do it. So it's like a Me Too thing, which is okay when women do it.
All lives matter.
But,
all lives matter.
But how are men supposed to deal with this? Like, men need to talk about their feelings, but only when these guys allow it, and only those feelings that are acceptable, and men also have nothing to cry about because they have no problems. But their big problem is they can't talk about the feelings that they don't have.
Yeah.
Which is why they're unaliving themselves. Like, I would say that men might be unaliving themselves because people like you are engaged in an absolute level of total gaslighting.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I got another super chow from Mnemonics. And he says for $5, the eye roll assigned male/female at birth said, like an accusation of the system really grates against me. It's not assigned masculine/feminine at birth, i.e. the gender they've so clearly divorced from sex. Yeah, I don't use the word gender anymore. It doesn't exist. So sue me. All right. Anyway, let's keep going. That's some made up shit. That's what it is. It's made up.
And that's the problem is that for a lot of men, I think we feel so uncared for by society. We feel so just like we don't really matter unless we prove our worth, that anytime any social movement gets any sort of traction, we just immediately just bum rush that.
Do you just you just spout whatever Hallmark card pops into your head in the moment?
Just let's continue.
How do you discuss with a person like this?
Let
They
me
have no logical consistency.
Yeah, let me jump ahead to the disagreeers because I think that they have some things I want to bring up. So 645 right here.
I know we're supposed to be all against Pearl,
so the perspective that I come from was about 3 years ago, I wanted to know why men didn't want to get married anymore. I kept hearing men say, I don't want to get married. And it kind of took me down the rabbit hole of family court. I started interviewing men that had been what's called divorce raped. And I kept finding guy after guy after guy that lived a couple miles from his kids and could not see them. It goes back to men should have access to their children. It's 50% their DNA. They should get 50% custody off the bat. And right now, 90% of the time, women get custody. The question was, do men have all of their rights? How can I say that they have all of their rights when I'm finding guy after guy after guy that is devastated he can't talk to his children? I had one guy who the woman got custody and she ended up taking the kid to a different country, and now his kid doesn't speak his same language. He spent $300,000 trying to get that kid back.
I interviewed that guy, I think, because I had him on a fireside chat. And he's a Mexican guy that met a girl from, I think it was Ukraine, in California years ago. They got together. I think they got married, had a child. Then she asked for a divorce. She fled to Ukraine and right after that, Russia invaded, and then she fled into Russia, and now he can't see his kid. And it's on our channel, Fireside Chat. Just look for. I can't remember the guy's name, but this happened. Real person, real experience.
Tom Maddie. Okay, you can look up Tom Maddie and what he went through. His wife was she was Thai. She was violent. They had 3 kids, and one night, and she wasn't necessarily violent with the kids, but she was violent with him. And it was so bad one night, and she tried to stab him. I think she did stab him. The cops came. The kids, they were going to take him out of the house, but the kids made sure that the cops knew that, who'd started it and who had done what. And so they took her out of the house, and she went next door to his parents' house to spend the night. And then she took the 3 kids to a domestic violence shelter and claimed that she was being abused by him. And so they let them in, and they stayed there for at least a year, I think. And then the shelter staff helped them leave the country, so they went to Thailand. So he hasn't seen his kids this entire time, right? Because he's not allowed to know where the shelter is, right? Nobody's going to tell him where his kids are because they're in the shelter system now, right? And the daughter, who was the oldest, she said, I was really scared for my brother when we were in the shelter because they told me that, once he turned 12, he would be kicked out, and I didn't know where he was going to go. And but the mother managed to smuggle them out of the country and abduct them to Thailand. So Tom Maddie had to move back to Thailand. That's where he met her when he was a professor there. Had to move back to Thailand and live there for like a year and fight in a Thai court to get access to his kids, to get custody back. He had been given custody. The shelter system would not respect that. And the Thai court, the older 2 were old enough by then to have a say in who they wanted to go with. The younger one didn't recognize him. She was too little when she was taken. And so the Thai court decided to leave the younger one with the mother and let him bring the older 2 home. And that was his good outcome, was he got to bring his older 2 kids home, and his younger daughter, who has got to be approaching 12 now, is still in Thailand with her mother and doesn't even know who her dad is, right? And this kind of shit. And there was no international court that was going to prosecute this woman for an international abduction of children, custodial interference in child abduction. No.
Yeah.
So,
I got another Rumble rant from NovaFan21. He gave us $1 and says, instead of thinking of Pearl as a men's rights activist, I like to think of her as a bull in a feminist china shop. Well, at least she's talking about the issues. And we don't have the fucking Mr. Dreadlock, everybody's a plant guy talking.
She's definitely an anti-feminist.
Yeah.
Do you notice how everything became a lot more grounded as soon as she opened her mouth?
They're about to try to shoot her down. So I got a super...
Because Hi Brazil isn't
I got a super chat from Albert Data Retro I should probably read. $5 Canadian. First, glad you got JoJo back. Also, look, Pearl the grifter. I'm surprised she could get her lips off Tate's butt long enough to do this. Fake. All right, thank you for that. All right, anyway, so let's hear the response. Pearl just dropped the bomb, and
I disagree.
How are they going to deal with it? Well, I disagree too, but whatever.
I want to look at women's stories as to why they don't want to get married. And I could go interview 1,000 women. You're looking for these kinds of men.
What she is discussing are individual and yes, tragic cases, and we can acknowledge that. But what we're discussing is a systemic issue.
Yeah, 90%.
Men and women
90% of cases are just individual cases.
Well, they fact-checked. I don't know if you guys saw that, but they fact-checked her when she said that. It's actually like 80%. So take that, misogynists.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to point something out. Again,
so 80% are the mothers who get full physical custody. The other 20% are a mix, right, of paternal custody and 50-50 custody.
And shared custody,
and some arrangement.
So they're fact-checking.
Some arrangement called joint custody, which means that the woman has them almost all the time and the man has them every Wednesday and every other weekend. And that is considered not with mother custody. That is considered joint custody.
Okay. Can I just want to point something out, all right? First of all, this is basically like the people, the T-Tom Festival. And I'm going to get Brian to I'm going to find it. I'm going to get Brian to play that video for you guys. Probably will earn us. Tom. But the other thing is that how much do they try to make policy based on outliers in terms of sexual violence? Like, and that isn't even, that's criminal. And they try to make it that it's a systemic issue, that men have systemic entitlement to women's bodies based on the behavior of outliers who are criminals.
Yep.
And yet we have an issue that affects something like 90%, 80 to 90% of men who are fathers going through divorce, and it's enforced by the system and the institutions that support the system, but that's not a systemic
it's just individual cases you see.
It's ridiculous.
It's individual cases.
Female victim fetishism. That's what this is.
Anyway.
They are taking outlying cases of female victimhood and they are constructing a systemic problem about it based on it, and they are ignoring an actual institutional problem that men face to a great degree, like 80 to 90% of divorced fathers, and they are saying, hey, that's not systemic, that's just individual cases.
if you actually wanted to do an equivalence, right? Okay, so there's a woman and maybe she's dressed provocatively, and there's a guy out there who wants to have sex with her. So the court system holds her down while he rapes her.
Yeah, in 80% of cases. Only 80%
though.
Only in 80% of cases.
Right? And therefore it's not systemic, right?
Those just individuals. That's just individual.
Those are anecdotes.
And this is the other thing. This is the other thing that we're pushing up against. It is like, and Jordan Peterson identifies this. We associate men with individuality more. So these things happen to men because of their own individual failures. That's what they're doing. And then the same guys turn around and say, well, why don't men talk about their feelings? Because you attribute all of anything negative that happens to them to their individual failures, like you're doing right here.
Yeah.
But we see women in terms of a collective, which is, I guess, beneficial to women when it comes to collective action. But when it comes to individual attainment or individual recognition or sense of self, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just want to put
Yeah.
that out. And I know it's a little more of a complicated
It's
thought.
all right.
So I'll
Let's hear the rest
speed
of
the
this
floor.
guy's systemic systems argument.
Worse, women see a 27% decline in the reduction of their income. They're more likely to be in poverty, and they're less likely
Because
to get
we're
remarried.
If you go around the world, there are countries that have male-only conscription, countries that have higher pension ages for men. Countries like the U.S. and Canada have
Did
certain
they ever
welfare.
address
No,
that?
this is, you could tell, did you not see the editing there? They just cut to another part of the interview.
Yeah.
This guy in the blue
Okay, so
shirt.
they
This
probably
is blue
did
orange,
address
by
that.
the way, right
Yeah.
here. So yeah, I'm going to talk to him about it. I want to find out. So what was left out?
He really
programs that
reminds
men
me
are
of the dude from Dark City.
Oh, Rufus Sewell? Rufus Sewell, yeah.
Yeah.
That guy, apparently Rufus threw
didn't
some of the
realize he was,
craziest parties. Like, I don't know, that hasn't come out yet, but yeah, that's what I heard years ago.
I know Blue Orange was like, he's been in some films and stuff, or
Yeah.
he was sort of.
He's an
wanting to be
actor, like,
Yeah.
he wanted to be an actor, yeah.
So, but
Theater
yeah,
kid.
no, he does really remind me of that guy.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I didn't realize that Blue Orange was sort of
Yeah,
a
no, he's a
fox.
good looking dude.
All right, let's keep going.
Excluded from domestic.
I can see where the testosterone is going.
I know,
on this
right?
panel.
This guy, the bald guy over here, this guy, he's like a mixed martial artist or something. Like,
Okay, feminists, you can totally.
no, but
have
these
it.
guys are
you can-
toxically masculine,
the
though.
guys
They're
on
like,
ours.
You can have
Give
you
him
can
the-
have the
give him the-
Doe boys.
yeah, give him the plant. Give him the plant.
And you can also have the man who thinks everybody's a
please.
plant.
Yeah.
He's already
Flower
yours.
boy is
anyway.
all yours. Yeah.
Okay. Can we stop with the thirst trapping? Okay,
No,
let's.
but
let's play some more.
I'd rather have sex with Pearl than with Flower Boy.
Okay.
I don't think you can have sex with
I'm
him. I
just-
think you have to he has to
there's not
spread
really a
pollen, and then
contest
you have to
there, Karen.
capture the pollen. It's not really.
I don't know. I don't know what who's.
I bet it
who's-
involves
I
a
don't
lot
know
of
which
dancing
one
with
of us would be
chiffon
donating
scarves
pollen.
and sparkles. Yeah,
All right.
I'm afraid.
All
I think our
Enough
T
with the
levels might be
personal
a little bit
attacks. This is a
higher
little-
than his.
It's mean, and I don't
But
appreciate
I just
it.
wanted to say, there's no context between Plant Boy and Pearl. Are you fucking
Yeah.
kidding me?
Okay.
She got that
Oh, no,
Amazon
she's
Violence
like-
laws,
quality.
homeless
she's
laws. There are many
hyper-masculinized, for
cases
sure.
where men do not have access to the same public welfare programs, tax-paid programs. And if you look at something like the draft in the U.S., people say, well, that's outdated. It doesn't happen anymore. But many countries in the world, included some that are considered like very first world progressive feminist countries, Austria, Finland, Switzerland, they have male-only conscription. And many countries have higher pension ages for men. So there are many examples of countries that have laws that directly discriminate against men. So do we have all the rights? I mean, no, we don't. In the US, I had to volunteer, well, not really volunteer, I wasn't given a choice, but I had to register for the draft. So that's a small example, but it's, one that still goes on today.
Can I just get
Yeah.
in here? Okay. Oh God, why did you have to still on
I know.
her? Okay. They used, and likely the people who were, or the men who, or the people, I guess, because I'm going to include Pearl, who at least have an understanding of men's issues, probably did respond to this. But they used something. I don't know if you noticed this. Divorce is often the choice of the woman. So they use a negative outcome of women's own choices as some kind of evidence of patriarchy. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
And now he's talking about things that are out of men's hands. So this is not institutions. So what he was originally talking about with women are poorer after divorce. Well, you chose to split up the family. That's what you chose to do, right?
Yeah, so own it.
So the fact you're poor as a result of making a poor financial choice, cry me a river. That was your choice. It's a negative of your choice. what he's talking about now
and let's
are
be
things
clear.
that
Let's
men
be clear
have
too.
no choice.
Yes, and let's be clear too, because like women do initiate the majority of divorces, and the number one reason, just like when you look at the reasons women have abortions, right? Rape, incest, and life of the mother account for some less than 5% of all abortions. All the rest are about convenience, right? Do I really want to raise a special needs child? Do I really want to have a child with this man at this time? Can I really afford a child? Do I really want to interrupt my career, right? It's all about convenience. It's all about it'll interfere with my life plans, right? Okay. So that is the vast majority of abortions. And likewise with women's reasons for seeking divorce, right? The vast majority of them don't include things like abuse. They don't include things like paternal abandonment, like the man just disappeared and he went out for a ride and he never went back, right? Went out for a pack of cigarettes and then she hasn't seen him for a year, right? None of those things, right? The reasons women divorce are because I'm just not happy. I'm just not happy, right? And it's like, I'm sorry, but when you actually dig down, right? And a lot of it is spur of the moment. Like it's very short-term thinking on the part of these women, right? Because most of the time they already have a man lined up like a monkey. They have a branch lined up before they let go of the old one, right? So they've been planning for a while, maybe a year or whatever, but it's like, they don't put in a lot of thought. They don't try to rescue the marriage. When they do, and then try to rescue the marriage and then stay in the marriage, they're more often happier with that decision than the women who were like, no, fuck it, I'm leaving, right? So it's like you look at women's choices, right? And these are women's unilateral choices, because ever since no-fault divorce came down the pike, right? Either spouse can choose for any reason or no reason at all to get a divorce, and all you have to do is wait for the waiting period and then finalize it, right? And so it's like they don't have to have a reason. They don't have to be miserable. They just have to be less than content, and then they'll do it. I could be happier elsewhere, and then they find out that they aren't happier elsewhere. Okay. And, or better off elsewhere. And, oh, well, it's a little too late now because you screwed yourself. You fucking played yourself. Right. And I'm just the whole idea that, oh, well, women suffer after divorce. Yeah. Well, I know it. I got a divorce, right? It wasn't easy looking after 3 kids on my own with no child support, right? For 3 years, right? Was not easy. But you know what? I took the 5 years to weigh my options before I pulled the trigger and said, it's actually worse to stay than to go. 5 fucking years. 5 years.
And you had financial reasons, right?
Basically. Oh, financial reasons and all kinds of other reasons. And yeah, so it was just like, no, there was just like, I can't say I guess I was financially better off during those 3 years than if I'd stayed in the marriage, just because I moved and to a place where there was actually work, but
yeah, but it's like the situation where you took the time to figure out what you were doing, and also recognize the negatives
and tried to rescue things.
Yeah, like women need to know, like divorce. Aside from Karen, I have never seen a divorced woman do better. Okay, like you're like the exception. Maybe it's something different, but the divorced women that I know, they just end up with a guy with the same kind of problems, the same kind of circumstance, except now he has the baggage of himself having been divorced.
Yeah.
And then they just keep going down the line, worse and worse and worse. And they're no better. They're worse and worse and worse. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's not a solution to anything but manifest problems, practical problems.
Yeah.
Like he won't stop drinking, or she won't stop drinking, or he gets violent when he gets drunk, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
won't go to conflict resolution. There's no movement. There's no ability to move somewhere in the relationship. Yeah, that's understandable. But if you're bored, or if he's just not doing it for you anymore because he's a bit paunchy with gray hair, that's not a reason to get divorced, which I'm pretty sure that's a lot of what they mean when they say that I'm bored.
Yeah, well.
We just, they don't want to sign up for everybody's going to get old eventually.
Well, you're lucky that way, Alison.
How so?
Well, Jonathan, he could still be a model for LL Bean.
Well, he might be like the captain on the seaboard looking out with his captain. Yeah, I guess so. I guess you're right.
Yeah.
No, he's aged really well.
Yeah, he's still a good looking man. So.
Well, thank you. I'll thank you. I'll tell him that you said that. But maybe we should listen to a bit more. And if you
Tiny
can,
bit more.
Brian.
I see it there, but I do have to go soon. So do you want to hear a little bit more? Do you want me to play this thing?
Yeah, play the thing, because I want to give people the context. This was done by a guy who was from Monty Python. He did a movie called Eric the Red. And
Eric the Viking.
Eric the Viking.
Yeah, basically Eric just goes through the Viking Age universe and observes people being complete doofuses.
Weirdos. Yeah.
Weirdos. And this is
there
one
a
of the
time
things
code? Because it's like 2 minutes long. So
it shouldn't be
just
2
play,
minutes
Just
long.
play the full 2 minutes.
Should be okay. Just play the full 2 minutes.
might get
we'll take the copyright hit.
Yeah, you might take a kit.
Well, we'll deal with it. Oh, we can't see it, eh? Or are you trying to?
Yeah, I have to change it. The tab that I'm.
Okay,
sharing.
yeah, there we go.
Okay, there we go.
The
Let me
tab
go back
has
a
been
little bit.
changed. All right.
Stay calm. This is not happening. What do you say? Now, I know what some of you must be thinking. The day has come, we're all going to go down, etc., etc. But let's get away from the fantasy and look at the fact.
We do seem to be going down quite fast, Your Majesty. Not trying to contradict you, of course.
No, of course you're not, citizen. But let's stick to the facts. The threat of total destruction has kept the peace here in High Brazil for 1,000 years. So whatever else is happening, you can rest assured, High Brazil is not sinking. Repeat, not sinking.
May I just make a point in support of what King Arnold's just said?
Oh, we couldn't wait. Yeah.
Save yourselves! High Brazil is sinking! Oh, but you don't know our safety precautions.
It can't happen.
But it is, look!
I already appointed the Chancellor as chairman of a full committee of inquiry into exactly what is going on. And in the meantime, I suggest we have a sing-song.
Good idea.
You know, I think we're getting better.
How can you tell?
Father!
So what? It's not happening.
Father, it is!
Get on board!
No thanks.
Who do you think you are?
Panic mongers.
Come on, over here!
Leave us alone.
Yeah, leave him alone.
Sinking! High Brazil is sinking!
Well, my dear, I think you'll find it's all a question of what you want to believe in, and I happen to have more experience in these matters than you do, I think.
All right.
Yeah, that's what we're dealing with.
That's our expert class right there.
Yeah, that's our expert class right there. They're experts in denying that men have issues. But literally, we have an entire branch of academic study that's what they do. And then we have a media that's totally saturated by people with that's what they do. They deny that men have issues. They deny that the foundation bedrock that we rest on has issues. Like, I mean, we've always existed in a society that's required men's sacrifice. First and foremost, their sacrifice to even maintain the social group, against predators, against disaster, against hostile tribes. And this is just another aspect of that. I think every society has a way of denying the sacrifices men make so that we can endure them making those sacrifices. And that's what we're seeing on the Jubilee panel. They use exaggeration of women's victimhood, exaggeration of the negatives of women's own choices to justify this landscape in which women are the ones that are always need to be focused on. So we don't have to focus on men. It's somebody else's problem, right? So we can ignore the sacrifices we expect of men and we need from men. And if we can't even say, well, we do actually need men to do these things because masculinity has a set of traits that allow them to be incentivized by pro-social competition to do things that women find uncomfortable or dangerous or too risky or whatever else. To replace men in most of infrastructure, you'd probably have to threaten women with death. You'd probably have to put a gun to their head. They don't want to do this stuff. So men spare them that, and we won't even admit it. We can't look at the fact that there's something wrong with the foundation of our society and what's keeping us up, what's keeping us from sinking. These people are a much less charming and much less personable committee of High Brazil on how High Brazil is not sinking. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because at least the people at High Brazil, aside from the fact they were in utter denial, weren't being assholes about it.
Yeah, and at least they drowned. They got what they deserved instead of being bailed out.
There was some consequences, right?
Yeah, there were some consequences. Well, there will be consequences to everyone for failing to look at the fact that our bedrock is sinking.
But you'll notice that the people who were not in denial managed to get away.
Yeah.
See? Yeah, no, that doesn't happen when your island is like a planet and there's no boat. So,
and again, this woman with her finger up, she's like, how dare you say High Brazil is sinking? How dare?
Anyway.
Men can't have problems. They need to fix our problems. Okay. Yeah, I know everybody.
I gotta go. I gotta go. So let's.
Well, we should make this into a little series because there's a lot in here that I think is worth going through. And I went through the whole video, so I don't want that work to go to waste.
I won't let you.
We're gonna get into a lot of good stuff here, so.
All right.
And I will be talking to Blue Orange, I think, on Monday.
I want to say one thing about somebody in the chat. They said it's feminist captured women. I think all women have an inclination to ignore men's issues. Simply because it's almost psychological. We rely on men for a lot of things. We're pretty helpless compared to other female species around the planet. So there's this tendency to deny the issues that men face. And it takes sort of a very disagreeable woman to actually genuinely see it. And not just see it in the context of a different type way that men should be serving women. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is more traditionalism. Okay, but anyway, we'll put that out there. All right, so I will do the things. Thank you for being part of this. If you would like to send us a message at any time after the show is over, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. It's the very best way for you to send us your messages. Did we get every one of those, by the way, Brian? So I think there was one more.
Super chows and stuff. Let me see.
Yeah, super chows.
I did get one more. I left it on the screen. I was gonna read it. So
okay, yeah. Read that and then
an anonymous person. It comes up Zapier for some reason when an anonymous person puts through a thing. Gave us $50 and says, "Why do so many of those feminists look like they should feature in failed cosmetic surgery ads? Because they're victims of their appearance. Okay, and it's patriarchy's fault."
Yeah, patriarchy makes these women make their choices. They never get away from it. They're just a substrate upon which men write their actions. Yeah. And that is empowerment, ladies. That's empowerment.
It is.
Okay.
Super
all right.
empowering.
So once again, feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a message and a tip. And I will be probably setting up the fundraiser for the month shortly. And thank you to everybody who made the meetup happen. It was great. It was lots of fun. Considering the short notice, it had I think a fairly good turnout, especially people who are guys who actually traveled from like California and like Eastern Canada to come see. So it was great. So thank you all for supporting that. Thank you, Karen, for coming. Thank you, Brian, for coming. And thank you, Jojo, for coming back.
Yeah. Thank you, Jojo.
And thank you all for supporting it. All right, I'm going to hand it off to Brian, so take us out.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today, and please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of the Rantzerker. We will make this a series, do some more on this, and we'll talk to you all in the next one. Have a good day, everybody.
Men activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.